All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on the EDGY Profiler. I'm Milan. I'm one of the two founders and presidents of Intersection Group, also curator of EDGY. The EDGY Profiler that we are talking about is part of EDGY, the open source toolset for co-creating better enterprises. Together, I'm also leading a consultancy called EDA, and we just started a startup called T-Menu. But today, it's really about what Intersection Group is doing, which is publishing EDGY. So it's a language, it's a tool set for enterprise design. It's open source, published under Creative Commons. You can look at it under enterprise.design. And we are now in a phase where the language is being used and applied in and around enterprises. And so we are seeing more and more tools. And for these tools, we have something called the EDGY Sandbox, which I will show later. That's where all the kind of draft and not fully reviewed and refined tools live. And one of them is the EDGY Profiler. We are also running events, especially we are running since 2014 a conference for the community. And the next one is in October, early October in Montreal. And we are also publishing books and other publications. And why are we doing all that? Well, we have an important, we think, and ambitious goal, which is helping people creating better enterprises. And we have a bunch of tools for that. Like in the background, you see a picture of the Milky Way, for example, which just shows how ambitious we are. But we think that the enterprise is basically a galaxy that we need to help shift and help to become better. But then there are also some more lightweight, some smaller, more nimble tools like the one that we are talking about today. And so you see there's a little asterisk next to the better, because we found that a better enterprise might be a matter of opinion, right? So if you ask different people around different kinds of enterprises, maybe companies, maybe governments, maybe not-for-profit associations like ours, if you ask the shareholders, if you ask the stakeholders, if you ask the neighbors, what does better really mean? And this has to do with perspectives, right? So we have all these people around the enterprise, they have relationships to it. Like in this picture, you see some employees, for example. They have a specific perspective on the enterprise. They might be happy or unhappy. There might be things might be well performing or not. And so there we have experiences, right? So we have employee experiences, and we can talk to them and we can ask, do you have good experiences here or not? Why not? What's wrong? Or what is great? And we can also shift perspectives and instead talk to the customers, for example, or talk to other groups, like in this case, officials, and ask about their experience. Then we can shift perspective and ask about how is everything working. Maybe there's a link between the two. Maybe if our customers are unhappy, maybe something is not performing that well. That might have to do with the architecture. Maybe there's a mismatch between the perception of the enterprise, as in the brands and the products, how they are being perceived, and how they are being conceived internally. And so all of these perspectives correspond to stakeholder relationships and positions around the enterprise and dynamics between them, but also to certain lenses that we use, like the ones I just mentioned. So we can look at the enterprise from a product, from an experience, from an architecture, from an identity, from a brand, or from an organization perspective. And all of these are valid, and sometimes they are more useful than other times. And so this is our answer to the better question. So what is a better enterprise? We think enterprises are ambitious endeavors. So they are groups of people that want to achieve something together. And if they are better, that usually means that they have a clear purpose and they actually serve this purpose. They not just saying that. And they translate that into experiences which means they are actually useful. They create value for people and their lives. And in order to do that, they have to deliver on whatever they are promising. And so when all these things work well together, when we look at enterprises from all three perspectives, when we also can look at the intersections between them, according to this model, everything is coherent, everything fits together, and everything works. And we have good experiences, we have working architectures, we have identities that make sense and that engage people, then it might be a well-designed enterprise. And so this has to do with the questions that we can ask, right? So if we want to find out, is this a well-designed enterprise? We might want to ask, what is the role they are playing in our lives? If we go back to the first example of United Airlines, okay, they help us get from A to B. They fly planes. They make us comfortable or not. They are reliable or not. So what is the role? How do they help us with what they are making and offering? What do they need to be capable of? And what do they need to achieve in order to do that? How do they operate? And in order to do that, how do they need to organize as a team? As an internal team, but maybe also as a team with other actors in the ecosystem, like officials, when you check in, you're not only interacting with the airline. Yeah, there might be airport staff, there might be police, there might be customs, and so on. And all of that has to do with how do they position themselves in this ecosystem? What's their identity? Why do they exist? Why are they there? What matters to them? And how are they being perceived? And so we notice that these questions are virtually always relevant in any situation when talking about enterprises. Even when the question initially maybe is, we want to launch a new product. Okay, so we want to change what we are making and offering. Why? Because we want to offer something new to people. Why? Because we want to evolve the role that we are playing in their lives. Otherwise, why would we offer a new product? So if there's no impact on the experience, why would we do that? But in order to do that, we need to change something to be able to deliver that product. So we need to change the way we operate. We need maybe new capabilities. So we have to change our architecture. Okay, so it's the challenge of new products is just here. Well, only if everyone is doing exactly what they do before and they don't change anything in the organization. Is that realistic? Maybe not. If we need to change our capability, if we need to achieve new things, if we need to operate in a different way in order to deliver that product, we might need to work together in a different way. So it changes the organization. If the organization changes, maybe our purpose shifts. Maybe there are new ways we work together. There are new goals. There are new stories, and so on and so on. So all of these are always relevant. They might not be relevant exactly to the same degree, depending on the challenge. But what we see very often is, even though they are all relevant, they are not addressed. They are not even asked these questions. And that has to do with the teams that are tasked with changing things in enterprises. Maybe it's a product team. So everyone has a product design development background. Maybe there's a little bit of diversity. Maybe you have some business analysts that are more looking in the architecture in edgy terms. Maybe you have some UX designers. But no one is asking, how do we need to organize in order to do that? What does it mean for our brand? Does our brand portfolio still make sense after we introduce this product? Does our brand need to shift in order to support this product launch? What does it mean for our identity? And so on and so on. So this is why we started introducing the EDGY Profiler. Its idea is quite simple. It's just a bunch of questions. The questions are personal, so it's an individual survey. And what I would like you to do while I continue the presentation is open this spreadsheet that I just posted in the chat. I hope you can click it and answer these questions. And I will actually start. So here we go. So yeah, everyone grab one of the tabs. Try not to grab one. Like maybe the first thing you do is rename the tab so that we know this one is taken. It's a bit of a collaboration challenge, how we work together, organization and EDGY. So the first one says Milan's name because this is my name. I reserved this one before. You know, I'm originally from Germany, and people say that's what we do with towels. And in the morning when they're at the pool, we come down and put the towel to say this is ours. So this is what I did here. So I say, okay, I'm Milan. And you can just grab whatever tab you want and change. So I see Chris already started here. Yeah, answer the questions. So did you ever work on evaluating or transforming an enterprise's identity, organizational culture, or people engagement? And you can answer, this is my job. Like, this is what I do every day. This is what people want from me. This is what I expected to lead. That's what I'm overseeing, that I'm experienced in. Or is it just sometimes? I have some experience in this. I have done it, but it's not really the core of my job. Or I tried it. So yes, I did that a little bit. Or no, not at all. So in this case, I would say I actually did that sometimes. Work with leadership on defining or refining a shared purpose, shared core story. I also did that sometimes. Collect, curate, author, edit, or edit content that is important to an enterprise and its various audiences. I think I do that quite often, actually. And you see, my profile starts to take shape. It will do the same for you. Let's continue. So do you analyze, optimize, or improve your enterprise's operational performance and adaptivity for change? Do that sometimes. Do you map or model key capabilities or processes required for carrying out an enterprise's activities? I do that actually a lot. Do you analyze or optimize the way an enterprise makes use of its assets, like applications, IT applications, information or data, infrastructure, can also be physical infrastructure? I tried that, but it's not really what I do. Experience. So I have a background in design, and my first experience in my job was user experience and product design, digital products. So do you do human-centric research into people's experiences? Do you do interviews, observations, studies? And I say, yeah, I do that actually pretty much all the time. Map or model people's journeys or tasks. Yes, I do that. Measure people's experiences across channels. I do a little bit less of the measurement, but yes. And then at the intersections, do you work on the org structure, the team collaboration, ways of working? Yes, that's what my clients ask of me. Design, develop, or manage products or services? Yes. And evaluate, design, or develop brands, or evaluate or assess, design or develop them to see or to change how an enterprise is perceived. And I say, usually not me doing that, so I say sometimes. And you see, this gives your EDGY profile. So for me, you see clearly my product and experience background, but you also see that I double in organization design. I have some experience and exposure to branding and architecture and also identity. And it gives you this color strip. So the brighter the colors, the more score you have here in your facet scores, and the more it means that you have experience in this facet. And yeah, I'll give you a little bit of time to fill that out. We will come back to this in a minute. But these questions, you might have noticed, are based on the EDGY facets and elements, right? So this is the model. So we are asking explicitly, did you ever help shape the stated purpose, the vision, the mission, the goals of an enterprise? Did you ever put that into a story to explain, to convey this to people? Did you produce content doing that? Did you translate this into an organizational structure? Did you design the teams, their responsibilities, the brief that they get, what they get when they get onboarded? Did you maybe use that content then in town hall meetings to lead those teams and give them something to do? And did you translate that into operations, into the architecture? Did you design processes, maybe in more specific languages like BPMN? Did you maybe look into the assets that are needed for this, like IT applications and the IT application landscape and architecture, and what you can do with them? So the capabilities, did you, again, maybe use some other language for that, but did you work on enterprise architectures or business architectures? And what comes out of those? Well, it's products, right? So if our architecture works, we are producing something. In EDGY, we call that a product. EDGY simplifies this. So we know there are many other terms that you can use. You can talk about operating models, TOMs. You can talk about value propositions. You can talk about mission and vision. But we keep those words out because we want to keep it simple. We want to establish a very clear, simple vocabulary that passes the teenager test. So all of these terms have been validated with teenagers. Do they work? Do they understand them? Maybe with a little bit of explanation, but not too much. And yeah, if you worked on products in any way, did you look how they are being used, found, how people buy them, how they use them for their tasks, what kind of channels they get in touch with your enterprise? And did you maybe look into what does that do for the brand? Is it good? Is it bad? Do we need a new one? Is the product, is it a good product brand, a bad one? And how does that then relate to our story? So there are people that have worked on all of these things. And there are people that have worked on some of these things. And there are maybe people that have worked on only one thing. And yeah, by the way, if you want to use EDGY, you can scan this code and you can also get one of these tools. There's EDGY implementations for all of them if you want to model enterprises with these. But this is just a little plug, because what we are doing here is something much simpler. Is we look at each person on our team and we ask these questions, and in the questions, hiding in the questions, are these elements and these facets, right? So did you work on the identity? Did you work on the purpose? Did you make content? Did you look into the architecture? Did you look into the experience? Did you work on the organization and so on? And this is then how the profile gets filled out. And because we all do that, we get a kind of a bouquet of our experiences expressed in EDGY. And we can look at some of the examples put in here. So this is really made up. It's basically, we asked random people who we won't name to fill it out and use them as examples. So someone who is a business architect said, well, yeah, analyzing, improving my operational performance, my enterprise's performance and adaptivity for change, this is my job. And for that, I'm mapping. And sometimes I also look into the assets. But it's more the enterprise architects doing that. I'm more a business architect. I never really looked into structured experience research, like user interviews, observations. I tried a little bit of mapping, maybe of journeys, but that's not really what I'm doing. A bit more, but like not a lot also for work on identity. So sometimes I work with leadership on their purpose, but really only as an input to my architecture. So you get this very blue profile, clearly an architect with a little bit of exposure and experience, organization and identity, and no experience exposure, because this little I tried, it doesn't count for much, and also not brand. While the product owner obviously says, well, I'm a product owner. So designing, developing, and managing products, that's my job. And for that, I also have to look into, are people actually using those products? Can they do what they want with it? Are they happy? So yes, this measuring experiences is also my job. The rest, yeah, I tried a little bit more on the branding experience side. Maybe I talk to architects, analysts, developers, and so on to make it happen. But the identity, the organization, not really for me. And you contrast that to a change manager who is really working on okay, why are we here together today? What do we want? What is our vision for in 10 years? What do we have to achieve together to get there? How do we engage people in the organization? How do we tell a story? So yes, a lot of this is my job in identity and organization, and the rest is really just a little bit of background. And often what we hear from people in change management roles or also transformation is that they're quite far away from the products, the marketing, and all of these things. And they're more having an internal view on the enterprise as a community, as a team working together, and so on. So you have a few examples here. Experience researcher, obviously looking a lot into experience, IT analyst, brand strategist, really looking into branding. So you get a lot of orange here, a lot of identity, often far away from product because that might also be a bit of a reflection of silos in the organization. Service designers, traditionally quite broad. One important thing to mention here is that in the early stages of this tool, some people thought that these are not examples of someone filling out the profiler, but 2B models, like in that a service designer should look like this. This is really not what we meant. This is someone who has a title service designer who says, well, this is my profile, this is my experience. There might be other service designers that have a completely different profile. We think there will be some patterns and trends and overlaps, but already if you look at the term service design, there's a definition in ITIL, the IT infrastructure standard for service design, which has, at least in the early stages of the standard, very, very little to do with service design as defined by the service design network, for example. So designing services, as in designing a hospital, designing the postal service. And so you will get people with the same title with radically different EDGY profiles. And that's kind of the point, because the title might not reveal that without them filling that out. And then, we get to the team level. So this is where we just put them all together. So we have here an organization design team where we have an org designer, an org developer, and you see they are all quite strong in organization because that's basically their job, but then not so much experience, big gaps in architecture. There's a business architect. Very good that they included them on the team because otherwise that perspective would be completely missing. And then we think that if one of the EDGY perspectives is completely absent and you want to change the enterprise as a whole to do something differently than it does today, then the holistic perspective that EDGY offers will add to your conversations, to your maps, your mental models of the enterprise, to the questions that you ask, and to the success chances of your endeavor. And so it's better to include them than not. That's sometimes a little bit of a controversial opinion. There are people thinking that putting lots of specialists in a room, getting everyone else out and letting them do their specialty thing in isolation is better. But we really don't believe that when it comes to enterprises. We think if we get a shared understanding of people with these different viewpoints and different experiences of what we have today, where we might want to go and what we might want to change, then the result might be better than without doing that. And so it's good to invite the architect here to the organizational change, organizational design team. Because it might actually affect some of the capabilities, some of the processes, some of the operating model questions, maybe even some of the IT assets, the internal products and tools, the way workflows run, like all sorts of things that we put in the architecture facet in EDGY might be affected or depend on decisions in the organization design and employee experience and identity space. Then we have here a product team with a lot of product experience, obviously. And then what you see here also is an average EDGY profile. So what we do there is just take the averages of all the individual scores and calculate a if that team was a person, if we just add all of the experiences, then we get this profile. And what you see, of course, as a result of taking the averages, is that unless you have a very specialist team, they will be quite subdued in colors, which is fine, you know, because again, what we are going for here is a holistic view where everyone can bring in their experiences. So if you have a very diverse team, you won't have a bright color in one of the aspects, in one of the facets, just because of that diversity. So no one, like there's no facet where everyone is an expert in. If you have that, then that's good to know, right? So in this case here, we have, so it's an architecture team. So we have a lot of, we have some product owners, we have an organization designers, we have obviously some architects, business architect. We have 3 enterprise architects here who obviously have quite blue profiles. Some have some exposure to experience, which is good. So it means they can maybe interpret user interview input or help with mapping customer journeys or user journeys or something like that. Yeah, we have a brand strategist here. Don't know why this person was invited to an architecture team. Seems to be a little bit out of scope, right? But maybe it's good, because maybe the change that we want to architect will have an impact on the brand, or the other way around. Maybe there are some decisions in brand experience that we want to incorporate in our architecture. And because it's just one person that is a brand strategist, so going full on brand, it's really not enough to make a difference here, right? So on the team profile, branding is gray. There's nothing, no branding, even though there's one person. So just to say, take these averages with a grain of salt. They are really literally just an average. Looking at the bouquet of colors together, maybe even like this, like look at it a bit zoomed out, squint your eyes a little bit and see what colors do you see in your team? What kind of edgy experiences and competences and perspectives do you see? Might give you a better perspective of the representation of the facets and intersections in your team. All right. Chris is asking if there is an example of the team worksheet to be shared. So that's a good segue if you want to use this. So you can already, if you want, take scan this QR code here. That will lead you to the EDGY Profiler in the sandbox, and there you find the descriptions and all the links. We'll also already put in the link to the slides. I think it's this. So this is just the slide deck that I'm currently showing. Yeah, and so if you go to the profiler in the sandbox, so again, the sandbox is where all our draft tools are living and growing. The profiler is in ready for review, which means if you would like to try it and you would like to review it and help make it an official EDGY tools that lives here on enterprise.design, please get in touch. And we can give you access to this Confluence space, and you can put in comments. Yeah, and so you see you have here under resources, you have the profiler and the examples that I just showed in Google Sheets. And you can also, if you prefer Excel, you can also just download them as Excel here. We tried it. It seems to work well. It seems to be inside the compatibility space between Google Sheets and Excel, including the color generation. Yeah, and just to conclude on the thinking behind the profiler. So if you go to enterprise.design, you see this animation, right? It's an artwork that by coincidence looked very much like EDGY, so we license it from Fabio Catapano, who is the artist. And it's how we see enterprises, right? So enterprises are dynamic, they are constantly moving. All the perspectives are always potentially relevant, they are overlapping. And so what we need to do as enterprise designers, regardless where we come from, is to develop the flexibility to shift perspective and to work with people who might have a different view on the enterprise that might prove useful collectively when we try to change something together. And so the EDGY Profiler is really made to help with that. Yeah, so this I have already shown. Yeah, that's basically it. Let's maybe have a look at your profiles. So can start with Peter. Okay, Peter, I think you are an enterprise or business architect. You can tell me if that's correct. Now, yeah, this is a this is a bit of you know, would be better if we were in Zoom together now to discuss this, so you can say something. But feel free to say something in the chat about your profiles. But yeah, I would interpret this as yeah, you have quite a lot of activity in architecture and experience, a little bit of exposure to a lot of the intersections. What I find interesting is that you haven't worked on the organizational structure or team collaboration. Because in EDGY, we think that people are basically part of the architecture, maybe the most important one. And so it always struck me as extremely weird that there is this very thick wall between people designing organizations and people architecting the enterprise or the business. But yeah, just an observation. Who do we have here? I don't know who Quatre Lettres is. But it seems like you are a product heavy experience and brand designer. Jean-Emmanuel, yes. Yeah, so working a little bit on, it looks like a little bit on everything, again, without designing organizations. It's also one observation, maybe there is a discipline called organization design. We have been working with the European Organization Design Forum. And a lot of the activities, also in, for example, Naomi Stanford's book, I had the pleasure to write a foreword. So I read the book quite thoroughly, and a lot of the techniques might be more facilitation and evaluation and development than what we call design when it comes to like designing, for example, a digital product, as in designing what it actually looks and how it works. And what that means also, I think, is that a lot of organizations are actually designed by managers who might not have read that book and who might not be here today. So that's something that we want to work on, is to bring organization design into the fold of enterprise design, invite them to the conferences, including, the unofficial organization designers doing the official org chart, which is often the managers, and see what are the links between organization and architecture, between organization and product, and how can we help making enterprises more coherent. Okay, then we have Neil. Oh, doing everything sometimes. It's great to have you on the team because, yeah, incredibly useful usually. Someone who understands everyone. Sometimes in trainings, we have even people saying all of this is their job, which might be hinting at a more generalist profile. And again, extremely useful. Just testing. It makes sense if you're just testing that experience and product is quite high, because maybe you're a researcher or validating, testing products and how they are being used. Just a theory I have. I find interesting that you didn't even fill out the brand, so I'm not sure if you work on brands. But of course, in the profile, that then means there's a gap. And that's another use if you are subscribing to the idea that EDGY puts forward, which is things are better designed if all of us that have these different experiences work together, then maybe have a little bit of branding. And I see you just changed that, so that's perfect. So looking into the things that are gray, or like, one of the things that we teach in our courses is basically developing this baseline. So in our EDGY course that I will talk about in a little minute, is that we try all of these things so that afterwards people can say, okay, I tried all of these. Eric's name, nice rectangle here. A little bit of experience in product, a little bit of organization identity, not so much brand and architecture, which is fair. It's nice in EDGY if you have, like, if you see the star chart and you have, like, compared to Peter here, see one spike and the rest is a little bit there. And in your case, everything is a little bit there, but there's not even a spike, but a little bit of emphasis on 4 of the 6 areas, which is not bad. Also to have you on the team. And then I think the last one is Chris. Looking at it, you are also more of an architect, but in this case also more of an organization designer, also looking into the identity of the organization. Again, I would love to have you on the team that tries to change, to transform the enterprise, as in organization and business, maybe. Again, we might have to look a little bit at brand together to make the full circle, and maybe get some experience and product designers into the team. Yeah, so this is just an example how to use. Let me just look at your comments. I don't have a co-driver today. The name of the book is Designing Organizations. There you go. It's this one is the last edition. I think it's the Economist Guide to Organization Design. It's also the last book that Naomi was convinced to write before retiring. It's a very, very good book. And yeah, if you're looking into the organization aspect, but also with a connection, I pride myself, that's a little bit my doing in the reviews, that there is now a very clear connection to enterprise and business architecture, and also to product and service design in the book, in this edition. So if you're interested in that, it's a bit of a because I think it's the, let's say, 4th edition. Doesn't really say here. But yeah, there are some older editions that you can also get. Okay, what else? Okay, you would have liked to have some extra columns. It's not quite my job. It should be occasionally, but not only as part of my job. Yes, it's a questionnaire. As qualitative researchers, And like if you are in experience design or maybe also in brand and product, and you are used to working with qualitative data, you know that quantitative data is always lacking everything. It lacks the reason, it lacks the context, it lacks the nuance. Yeah, I know. It's a very crude tool, but the idea is it's easy to deploy. You can actually have an entire 50,000 people organization fill it out in a few minutes, and then you get a profile. And then if you would like to know more about these things, best research practice that I would recommend is look at the outliers and look at the averages, and then have a few interviews and ask those exact questions and find the nuances. Another technique that is kind of the Dave Snowden technique would be to combine it with, please add some comments on this. And then, but then of course you will have someone to will have to read those comments, might be an AI, but that's one way to maybe get a little bit of the missing nuance into the data collection. Yeah, I mean, if brand is outside the scope of your job, that's fair. The brand people might say, well, organization and architecture are completely outside of my job. What we think what that means is that they might, get an agency to work on the brand, and that agency gets a brief from the C-level and from the marketing department, while you are doing whatever your job is, might be product, might be architecture, might be organization. And then in the end, it doesn't really fit. I was working a long time ago at one of the major European software companies, and they did exactly that. If you know that software company, it's used in many big organizations. It's not exactly known as being the most accessible, easy to understand, and easy to use for the users, which is mostly because it's not bought by the users, it's bought by a mix of business needs and IT department. And so the brand agency said, always simple, never complex. And if you know that company, you just know this statement is so far from the truth, it's almost impossible to imagine anything further from the truth, at least from the perspective of perception, so how this brand is perceived by users and by also the general public. And this is what happens when what we build, what we do, how we organize, how we structure everything is detached from the brand job. And maybe some of those conversations would have been good to have. All right. Please feel free to do whatever you want with the EDGY Profiler. It's part of EDGY. So it's open source, it's Creative Commons. You can add those extra columns and fork it if you want. There's you can join our community. There are some events coming up. Jean-Sébastien, who is here in the crowd, will talk about affinities. People have affinities. I think there might be a connection here. We also have next week a campfire with Daniel Simon from Across and Ahead, following another survey, which is a modeling survey. So please get in touch, join our community if you would like to join these, or if you want to use EDGY in your environment, use the profiler or contribute. This is the sandbox I already has shown. Another little plug is that, of course, the EDGY Profiler works extremely well in combination with the Enterprise Scan. It's another survey-like tool that Helgi Björkvinsson authored. And in this case, the questions are slightly different. They are still the same facets and intersections, but we are asking, is there a common understanding of, for example, in experience, the journeys that we expect that people will go through, or in identity, the stories that we need to create, or in architecture, the processes involved, or in product, that the products that we are offering, or the effect on the brand. And everyone in the team will say, yeah, or partially, or no, or it's not relevant. Maybe someone would say branding is not relevant in this project, or we don't know. And that gives you this representation of the shared understanding of the enterprise, of the challenge, and of the space that we are working on together. And this can be very revealing. In both cases, we would encourage you to look at a little bit at the documentation. So you find the enterprise scan here on enterprise.design. And if you plan to use it, just have a look at the example of performing a scan. And yeah, it's quite a long story. What happened? What were the conversations? What were the workshops? What did people understand? And yeah, if that might be a blueprint for a conversation that you would like to have, don't hesitate, and don't hesitate to combine them. For the profiler, we have something very similar here, which is an example. It's a bit more simple because we think, or I think the question is a bit more simple. But yeah, going through the individual profiles, going through the group profile, and then comparing the profiles to the project, have some reflection, decide on some outcomes. So this is how you use the profiler. All right. What else do I have? Not much, I think. Let's see. Yes, if you want to learn EDGY, we just announced a new cohort starting May 21 over 6 weeks. It's just 4 weeks of remote sessions and videos to watch and exercises to do together, and 1 week say hi, hello, and 1 week conclusion. So that's 6 in total. Yeah, it's over the summer basically, so we call it a summer school. And we go through the facets and the elements, and we practice mapping enterprises and combining the techniques that are also mentioned in the profiler as experiences. In October, we will go for the very first time for our 12th edition of the Intersection Conference to North America, more precisely to Montreal. 3 days with cases, with EDGY use cases, with workshops. We usually have a quite international crowd. So if you're interested in that, also please get in touch. The call for contributions is just started. So go to intersectionconf.com to have a look. Yeah, and that's basically all I have for today. We just scan again the chat. Okay, Jean-Emmanuel is asking, is having identity I'm not sure if I understand your question there. So does identity bring a clear thinking to navigate the future? I don't think alone. I think you need all perspectives to actually imagine the future. Identity might clarify the purpose and the story, but then it might be good to translate that to future architectures and future experiences, and then make the loop back through the stories, to the content in identity, and see if it holds up with a reality check and with by adding those other perspectives. Okay, Chris, I think this is more of a comment. Would be very useful at the start of a project to make sure you have a balanced team. I think that's correct. That's how we use it. We also use it at the beginning of each cohort of our training to see who we have in the room. It also helps people position themselves on the facet model, saying, yeah, I'm really feeling at home here in architecture, but then I had some experiences in organization design or in product, or I did once a user interview, or I observed a user interview or something like that. So already for those conversations, it's quite valuable. Does it make a difference to bring everyone in the way of the change? So I think if I interpret your question correctly, Jean-Emmanuel, is does it engage people to work on the change together? In my experience, yes, it does that. Mostly by already just opening up their minds that there might be something outside the pre-selected scope, and bringing home this idea that the diversity that we have around the table is basically just a mirror of the diversity of valid perspectives on the enterprise and on the challenge that we have. And so for reframing, it's already quite useful, and opening the path towards reframing the challenge, because yeah, it might just be something like, well, like take Helgi, for example, the author of the scan. So he is now working mostly as an architect, as an analyst, but he did his PhD thesis or master's thesis, I'm not sure if it's Dr. Helgi, on branding, right? On brand image. And just making that link and saying, okay, look, I'm here, I have this knowledge, I was an expert in this in a previous step of my career. I'm happy to bring that in. Is it relevant? How? And just one example of how brand can be relevant where you don't expect it. Let's say you work on introducing a new HR system, and you might want to buy the system from that company that I mentioned before, like a big software system to manage all of HR, the benefits and the payments, the payroll, the recruitment, and everything. And your company just had a brand agency come in, and the brand agency says something like, we are always reactive and always agile, and we are always in touch with people. Some blah, blah that brand agencies like to put on company slogans. Okay, and after the introduction of the system, for some reason, your job candidates have to wait 6 months until they get a reply that they are rejected or not rejected, or maybe they get never a reply. And so because this promise that was made on a branding level, we are always reactive, we are always in touch with people. For some reason, no one thought of the brand, the employer brand towards candidates. No one put that into the requirement for that system. And so the system breaks the brand promise, the system breaks the performance, and the system destroys the experience of one major stakeholder group, which is important for your enterprise, which is talent. So good example, I think, for how branding is relevant for something that might be scoped as an IT project, and brand is literally someone else's job. All right. Thank you for joining today. Please keep in touch, and maybe see you next week at our campfire or on Slack.